대화 주변에 띵이 대화 주변 안에 동화 탐지 세야기 호외 동화에 파줘야지 안에 띵이 대화 토야데 산지고만 책으로 봐 탈두디 나다 산지고만 토발라 안에 파신주기 냠는 대한 전주 심기 심비톤에 아니 파신주기 냠는 진에 산지고만 토고고로 봐 잔디네기자 당한 저기 산지고만 토야디 파신주기 냠는 시령 저기 삼류톤에 아니 삼류 로장제 아니 곰접제 아니 직두고 인자 다디네기 파신 전주 심기 냠는 군로 전주 심지 고고래제 지나다 전주 심 gyule kevala nyele ya ngazulya tsosa tipcha roji manguchi kogore sonam sa kogore chide dine enza dine manjoge delya chophuya da and dikwa shaba da chophuya la soba dine ge chine sonam sa dine jaju sem gyule kene dine gomje nyamne jebale dine sanyo goma tokogore dinza da jaju sem maji nyele ngazda tsosa tipcha je da di ndo chin dine ma shugor wa da ke singesu.
Good evening. So as to attain our desired state of lasting, stable happiness, a happiness that is never punctuated by even a moment of pain or suffering, we need to completely eradicate the suffering and the causes of suffering from our continuum completely. To do this, we need to train in the 6 perfections and train in them to the point where they become perfected and we arise as Buddhas. Training the mind in the 6 perfections, or the practice of the 6 perfections means training the mind in these various practices, generosity and so forth. But for them, these practices of generosity up to wisdom, to be perfections, they need to be conjoined with bodhicitta. And in order then to generate bodhicitta, one needs to prepare one's mind. One needs to prepare one's mind by both accumulating extensive virtue as well as purifying past misdeeds. So this is then the section that we are in the text, having looked at the benefits of bodhicitta, so as to give rise to determination to become bodhisattvas ourselves. We are now in the 2nd chapter, where we've looked at a number of verses about the accumulation of virtue, so as to prepare the mind to then generate bodhicitta.
Gyujala sa se yorwa che ni che sa se de nemba mangbu chai de ro sa chen mangbu sa gre da gyujala sa se dang ju ge lega chi le che ane ji jala ro su ra ye yorwa da dene sa ji chilon chu ji ben den do la dene gi chilon chu ra che ne dene ge sa yorwa dang ju ni je sang ji ji so gap so dang ju ya 동화 세 디기 주야기다 변조 사고스 소소가 레가는 전다 투 변조 셔라젠데 두스 마마 치마델 뒤절라 사발라 그러다 다들 아주 다들 디가 소가 소사 집전 제고래 세디 사세디 개와사고래 소사고래 세디 개와사고래 디사세디 치론 주용에 개야 말다 땡 아주 삼로랑이다 삼로나리아 제상 아주 소사고래 세디 기신은 아주 최고부야 삼다도 수수 삼날이야 매도하다 두배다 마매다 지샵다 되는 부기에서 비 삼로디 다 개월에 초월이다 진짜 되는 삼로디 직다 니다 진짜 사실의 차 직다 니다 숨다도 망부를 직 차는데 야네 다도 니벌 마선 셔셔 주고도 그 소사바시고라 사세디 제상아주 삼리톤에 개와 줍제 개와 사세디 삼로 그런 단체네 야네 땅에도 그 니벌 마선 셔지도 다 사바서 소사바서 개와 사바시고 제가 디네 장아주 계신도 소 안지게 제메도 부야 두부 부야 부야 지샤 부야 니셰세다 로마라서 부야라서 바다 디네지 셰강 니지게 she kuchu sya dine she kang du pugu smi dine samlo nale dine jwa dang zu du pugu sambi ke samlo she tang medo pugu medo be ya go digi puida go digi pugu smi samlo she tang na du she ne ji ba 추가 되게 된 요래 삼다 안델이야 아직 되니 슈 아니 구투제 아니 바 아니 제 남제 되게 부야당 되네 아니 지 디살야 아니 지 강바로 시행하 되게 부 안도시네 안델이야 아니 아직 되야다다 되바다 잠면 다야 되네 기진 부유에서 삼로 되네 야네야도 되다야디 아팅아주디 개화사오라지 삼로나 되니 부예기 권조리야 상예다 전주선반남기 구송 투수 연대제 대바제 엔델리아 소수게 셈딩도 한데 푸기 셈병고소 예비 메바제제 푸기 셈베 삼다이도 데디 개화사바서 데디 냐지 야네야도 삼다이디 개화사바서 디차고로 와데
In society, there are various things that we desire, things that we need and desire, and in order to be able to accumulate these, we go to work, we accumulate our salary, and in dependence on the salary we've accumulated, we then can go shopping and buy all the things that our heart desires. So this is the way that we do things in society. Where this differs from our spiritual practice is in society, one goes outside of oneself to engage in one's employment and then to do one's shopping. These are all external matters. Here in our spiritual practice, we focus on cultivating virtuous minds. So when we hear about accumulating virtue, as opposed to accumulating possessions, the difference is that accumulating virtue is focused on the internal, on accumulating virtuous ways of thinking. So when we talk about an accumulation of virtue, another way to express this is to strengthen our virtuous ways of thinking. The stronger our virtuous ways of thinking, the more virtue has been accumulated. Here in these practices, in these trainings, we are cultivating skills such as the mind of generosity, where one freely gives of oneself without any restraint and holding one's qualities back. So one does this through making a wide variety of offerings, offering flowers, incense, balm, bathing chamber, clothing, crystal palace, all of these various offerings that have been presented in these preceding verses. And by doing so, not just once or twice, but repeatedly over a sustained period, we develop this ever stronger habituation to the mind of generosity, to wanting to give. And this is the accumulation of virtue. We are accumulating ever stronger virtuous ways of thinking. And these practices, whichever they are, such as generosity, are done on a foundation of a mind of confidence or faith in the qualities of the three jewels, the qualities of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So having generated this deep faith or conviction or trust in the three jewels, in the qualities of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, then one embarks on the various other virtuous activities, such as generosity. And all of these accumulate virtue, or to express that differently, all of these are virtuous ways of thinking that we grow ever more habituated to. And this strengthening habituation is the accumulation of virtue.
장주 셈 냠네 셈자 탐지 된다 산지 고고 토발라 장주 셈 냠네 제고 지사 장주 셈 냠네 제야게 된다리야 아니 부야다 근데야 장주 셈 냠네 제바데 가르치네 제고라네 셈전 탐지 고유 동안을 저고도 지사디 저와라 네 산지 고고 토고도 디 산지 고고 토발라 장주 셈 냠네 제네 산지 고고 토고고래시 지난 체도 제와 셈전 탐지게 된다 삼다제 두시네 semja tamje ge danda la ya da dunga se gu do di gi ju gu do jisan di che do nge semja tamje sang yo go wa thu bye che do jang ju sem nyam len ji gi jisan de jang ju sem nyam len je ba la nge de menchik cho sawa za dinigi to la ni ya sanje da je sembal ya dushine chebadi puye sambe samda du puye de dinigi samlo chasan gewa cha de ro da yu sanje da je sembal deba chebigi deba che de geware 아니 dia 아니 semjen 탐지에 둥아세야 된 디기 두구도 sembe 삼로디야 개와레 딜레 삼로 딜레 라바지 개체와지 메르와 펜비 삼로 딜레 라바지 메와라다 그래서 디니 자다 디니 전주셈 상보 셈미나네 초도기바 아니 전주셈 냠는제 돈달라 삼다 부여도 디니게 삼로 차상 지 개와 차려라 디니 삼다제 디니 쳐봐 다 뭐라 나서봐도 빠도 메봐 디니게 지게 야고 시우 부이다고 돼야 야고 인바 부이다고 인바 초도 교바 돼야 망부 야침보 시우여바 누섬다 부여도 니네게는 부비게 제디게나 빼마세 야고 초도 교바 냥 차도 니네 섬다데 다 개와디 안지게 랍침보다 개와 덥침보 시우지 안에도 차고로 와다
This practice of making offerings, those to whom the offerings are made are the supreme field of the three jewels. And in making these offerings to them, we generate a faith in their good qualities. They're recalling their good qualities. We generate faith or trust or conviction in their good qualities. And so this is to whom the offerings are made. Then the purpose of this practice, why we are doing it, is in order to generate bodhicitta. So we have this determination in our mind that we are now going to embark on this practice in order to generate the causes to become bodhisattvas. And why is this our goal? Why is this the purpose? Here in the generation of this determination of wanting to become a bodhisattva, one generates the mind of enlightenment, which is the wish to lead each and every sentient being to their own enlightenment, to achieve their own enlightenment, a perfected state, freed entirely of suffering. So this is our motivation, a motivation of bodhicitta and refuge. And this is the motivation we generate before all virtuous activities, such as these, those of generosity. So here we are cultivating a variety of virtuous minds. There's the mind of refuge, there's the faith in the qualities of the three jewels, there's bodhicitta, there's the training of generosity. These are all various virtuous minds. These are a variety of virtuous minds that are accumulated. This is the accumulation of virtue, the accumulation of various virtuous minds. And as we accumulate ever more virtue, that means we are strengthening this accumulation of these various virtuous minds. We are becoming ever more habituated to them. They're becoming ever more powerful within us. This is the meaning of accumulation of virtue. It is the strengthening of our virtuous ways of thinking.
The Sunam Sage, some of the Luchin, some Danje, Luchin, some Dangor, the Sunam of Chimusagor, Jesun, the Nigga Sunam Sage, Yamlan Jedadi, the Jike, Benjo Yevachina, Mevachina, the Miko, which is Sune, to some time you have water, you have a child, the Sunam Sage, go up the Chasalia, Jira Tuyada, Bem as a dead Gangasha, Jemo, Lucina, some Daje, and Jigas. Deje, Dusin Relation, Dene, and Dusha some die in Gore, and Pazu, Combaja, Droducabla, some die in Gurwa, and the measured legally depending on legals lady caplina, the legals lady capla, this some time Dusin, Pugus, Denegi, some Dashavan, the Neanzulia, Sonum Lapchimosagi, Jig some time had the pay, as a Yabulam Dusin, Mechishoshin, Shinangurwat, Chesa, the Nezada. Yama Koronzo dus Yamlen Najidi, and Yanzulia Dusin and Gurwa, Yamlen Dineshi or some Dangore, the Denigi, some Natanagishin Budding Anzulia, Labur, Dangadi, Denigi, Delian, Dusin, some Naya, Chandrija, wedding Anzuki, Lagarosum, Dishagurwada.
Shantideva is presenting a very skillful way to easily accumulate virtue. Because as we've seen with these various verses, And as has been presented in the explanation in the commentary, is all these practices are mental. They are done by cultivating, training one's mind. So the practice of generosity can be done by those who have an abundance and those who do not. In that, everyone can train their mind. Also, the practices of the Dharma can be done by those who are busy and are going from here to there and this activity to that activity, because in the periods of, for example, traveling from A to B, they can engage in these practices because these practices are all mental. And in, for example, the practice of generosity, while traveling from A to B, one can engage in practices such as this. As well as, of course, then, if one has time to sit on one's cushion, sit on one's chair, and engage in meditation. So this is a very skillful way to practice the Dharma in daily life, to practice the Dharma between a variety of activities, because to do so is to cultivate these minds that you're training in your meditation, in the classes, to cultivate them again, call them to mind, and practice generosity in this way. And in this way, throughout one's day, one can accumulate virtue, which means strengthening these virtuous minds.
That is samlatang time the subu gyotang was kaya marwa. And just subi jego and mishanda kill or mishanda or the chick some chick me library some chick madiwar shorwa madiwar shorwa. Subu chick jego mishanda gitane. You admit library chick me Karjik library some general to the Yungruwa, Chetan Jay, Devumia Yungruwa. Chesande, me Manguene, does new men, so sometimes Mich and that Hoya Skayamara, so someone do sometimes come Sosu, somebody Gomgur or Gomshizugora, then Jidene, Shandagi, and Jik Nichigusene, and Jikunja, the Matan Mazevacha, Gayamar, Minduad, the Negi, some Rimbadi. The
trainings of the Dharma are training one's mind. Practicing the Dharma is training one's mind. So therefore, one can do so whether one's sitting at home alone or whether one's out and about surrounded by many people. Because one is training one's mind is always present. And therefore, whether we are alone or with others, we can train our mind. And the beauty of this process is that others, they will have no idea of your mental activity, of your mental engagement. It's not as if one is physically needing to do something or act in a particular way or speak in a certain way, which would perhaps incur judgment or comment from others. But here, all you need to do is be cultivating these minds, practicing generosity on a mental level, for example. And in this way, one can do so free of others passing comment or judgment. One can do so whether alone or with others.
Dine anu du puya den divado shu chaware da den ma na jige da shue din dele shen chube sok romo yang yuo den semje dunga simje bi tinam soso ne yurji iksede on du shin din ma shuere da.
Of the number of verses we've looked at making offerings, including offering flowers and incense, a bathing chamber, clothing, a crystal palace, and a parasol. And now we come to the 20th verse. Besides those, further collections of offerings of delightful music with harmonious melodies that soothes the suffering of sentient beings, may these individual clouds of offerings remain long.
Kisinyemalya anajike ondushine pishe yo dimember dele shambegida janya kisinyema puede medodo dubedan puedan tishala sabadi puerwa and denigi puedele shenda lama and gariorsene anjike shaya ane chibu cho chibu puegi cho so the bado meba garisen reme yanyen yuontes romodan Anechi Piwada, Limbo, Damien, that the negative jibola sopade denegi nga dunya la sopade denegi chi mangbo jorwada odeso romo yang nie sen denegi pe chi dadi ki pe nyembu pa chi iwon den si de amjo de chi dadi ki amjo goyon de kablma semlia de la la ye da anji dene semlia gadi ki kawada dewa ki de la la ye dene iwon den ba chi ndusine desuya denegi yoba meba che chen pu go re sa chi.
The verse starts with besides those. Besides those refers to the variety of offerings that have been presented previously. Again, those are flowers or incense or a bathing chamber, the clothing, crystal palace, and where we ended last time with a parasol. So, but in addition to those, besides those, further collections of offerings of delightful music with harmonious melodies. So here now an offering of music is being made, and a variety of music that is beautiful and pleasing to whomever hears, and leads to joy and delight arising in the mind of whomever hears this melodious music.
고용도 안에지게 샘제 동아디게 ben치 샘마디바다 마기바다 되는 쳐서 동아한테 시시에 지시 류리야 샘리야 가디게신 다 배가디 침바선 다 배안주는 지 잘알 마서 약부스로 당아 배고라선 지소 샘배 삼매셔로와 침바서 어디나신 내니기 가디 바도메 바중에 침바지 용하게 안에디 되는 용해 샘진 동아 침지비스 데니기 침바지비가 레메테냐로 소바 푸유에선베게 삼당을 해제 데니기 푸발레 데네 장인데게 대수기에는 디기티는 용교바디 도시는 삼당을 해서.
When making offerings like this, we bear in mind the joy that we experience and see others experience when they attain something that they've longed for. So here when making offerings, such as here when offering music, we imagine the joy that it brings to others. And then we see this in the third line, that soothes the suffering of sentient beings. So just like a beautiful music can lift the mood and let go of one's troubles, and rather to be inspired with the beauty of the music, this is how we imagine the offering being received, or the impact that the offering has.
내게 부비게 침벌지비게 진남 소소 내교지 진세의 야침보세 거다. 지단 진세 지단 남갈 진배 남가 차선 진이 켜바나신 배 야침보세 거다. 내게 레모다 양년디 양년비 레메 직다 마라 빠도메 받는 야침보 휴지 부여서 내게 소소 내교지 쓰다. 레자당 지게 소소란 베네 레미게 양예 소소소소소에 된 데니기 여바디게 쳐서 야채 뭐 데니지 부위에서 데니기 부바 부위게 잔인디 요고요도 샘전 담제 아니지 류리아 동아서 세세네 데기 바도메 바 침바체 디교 용고요 바디 데니게 삼다 부고를 해서 노신의 부여 직차고와.
The verse concludes with, "May these individual clouds of offerings remain long." So here and elsewhere where we see the term clouds, what this usually represents is vastness. So there are different types of clouds. We could think often of those rain clouds which pile one on top of the other like in big storms. And here in this particular illustration, we see that these are individual clouds. So we would imagine the sky with these large, bulky clouds. So in this way, we imagine the vastness of the offerings. And may these offerings continue to ease the suffering of beings, continue to lead to joy arising in their minds.
내게 누삼다나지고 심전 동아 심지비시데 진음 소소네 유지시데 제가 레메단 자인 바도메바 데니게 야침보 데니게 지게 바도메보 푸바레 데네 푸비게 선남 딜레 데네 선남 디기 and 무슨 도와 심전 탐제 동아 탐제 시네 아니 류다 셈 디기 푸손 소바 중제 데베 침바지 용어쇼 셈베게다 몰람로지 도시네 디 푸비고 선남 델라 데네 데네 용어쇼스네 몰람로지 다자나자 예바 체거래.
When making offerings such as these, especially when we see in the last two lines, this can encourage us in our motivation and our dedication. That soothes the suffering of sentient beings, may these individual clouds of offerings remain long. So what's being expressed here, and what we should ideally be giving rise to within ourselves, is that through these vast offerings and innumerable offerings, may this incredible store of virtue, may it ease the suffering of beings, may it ease all their physical suffering and their mental suffering, and rather may beings attain lasting happiness.
Dene damje kunjo tamje da chiden namnam kuzula rinjin medo laso char ane gyumiche babar shos.
The 21st verse. May a rain of flowers, gems, and all that is precious continuously fall upon each stupa, every holy image, and the jewels of holy Dharma.
That Gunjo, Damje Gunjo, Tamje Dan Sidi, Badelia, Damje Gunjo said, Sanyi Yu Gu Sungi, Gu Sung Tu Dien Sajura, Gu Sung Tu Sajura, that Sungi, Sung Dien, Sungi Dien, Damje Gunjo Sidi, Delia, Sanyi Yu Sung Shebi, Sungrap, Gay Denjitics, Sungrap Saj, Gugore, Sungraptic, just a Sungi Dien, Sanyi Yu Sung. Damje Concho, and Jesulia, Chebu Yudi, Jesur, Damje Conchos. That in a Damje Concho did not let Chu Concho, Cortena Lamdini de Ungure, Cortena Lamdie, and a Chu Concho Momadida, Cortena Lamdini de. That's how you soon the that Chu Concho Consu Toba Chagore, Chesan inside the Delia, Sanyi, you Sungi, Dien, and Gada Tenchu Sunchberg, Sungche. Che body to get to do then it's easier to your than the body Mongodo, the che in the Atisha do. Che in the Mongodo, this day need to get this order. San Yu Sung, the Dien Chofu, Jesulia Chopu, or says that San Yu Sung, Dien Che body ticket, and the Delia, and also Gotenda, Lamdin, the Choconjo, when Gotenda Lamdin, Damjo Conjo, Tamjeda said this word. The children Nam said Logure, Damju Concho, Tamje Dang says. Damju Concho, Tamje Da said, Damju Concho, Tamje said, Dambi Che said, and Che Body, San Yu Sung with the Che Body to get chair. And the day I am Concho, Che Concho, when I got in a Lamdeni, or this Tamje, that is what Tamje, the Chobu Yudi, that one was on board that Jessica got him.
So the translation. Here we go from the bottom of the verse up. So the Tibetan starts with the jewels of holy Dharma. So here we recall or think of the holy Dharma in two ways. So there's the Dharma that we can visually perceive. So for example, the scriptures, collections of scriptures that we have on our shrine, for example, and in other similar shrines. And these are placed in areas such as this, so that one can make offerings to the physical presentations of the speech of the Buddha. The speech of the Buddha is of particular importance amongst for the benefit of beings amongst the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha. It's a speech that is of in particular importance. Hence, when one makes offerings here, one can do so when doing so with great faith. Great virtue can be accumulated. Because its independence on these physical representations of the speech of the Buddha, that teachings are given and teachings are then cultivated within. So there's the scriptural Dharma, which are the teachings that are given, and there's the realized Dharma, that which is cultivated and attained within the mind. And in particular, the realized Dharma of what really the Dharma jewel refers to, which are the true paths and true cessations in the minds of Arya beings. So here we can take jewels of holy Dharma to refer to both the physical representations of the Dharma jewel and the actual Dharma jewel, which are true cessations and true paths, the realized Dharma, that which is on the continuum of Arya beings.
Damje Concho Che Body ticket, Dene, Che Concho Cotelani, Nieje, Dan Tugi Den, 투기 때인데 최대한성도 최대한 현실교 최대한 ben에 다들 시대엔 최대다 와란다서 최대사 되니게 어두지 최대 남게라서 봐 되니게 최대 남당 하서라 최대 남당 되네 구속라 세대 되네 구속세대 상이 구유 안에 대 다들 구속한테 지금 제 세다 상다 되니게 쇠샤바 되네 구속 군자라서 봐 상 군자라 되네 안바 즉 세다부도 수구다 지시죠 구디게서 어디설이야 선다 최후에 유대설이야 비교해서.
Second line in the Tibetan is our third. Each stupa, so here we can think of all the stupas that we have seen, such as the ones here or in Bodh Gaya, Varanasi and so forth, as well as every holy image of the Buddha. So there we can think of the statues we've seen or the tankas and other imagery that we have seen.
인자다 최대남 나디솔이야 안에 가르스네 렌진메도 라소처 유미체바 바바쇼 시데 제사 데니기 림보치기 메도 라소바스데 림보치 메도다 안지 베다 누베라소바다 데니기 지기 메도 릭자마라라소바도 메바 데니기 안에 지 남간마 차르 유미체바 바바는 유미체바 유진에 데니기 대가소래 메도라 소바다 메도도 두베바 로마라 소바 네네기 림보치리 바도 메바도스네 차르바바나 윤미체바제 아니 네네기 최대다 네네기 구송 투숨기 대 아니 지금 최보디다 아니가도 최대다 아니 네네기 산지구 구군자 예서나 네네기 차산 네네기 윤미체바 바바 용어 쇼스비 네네 몰람 유츠디 아니 쇼쿠야레서 몰람 유츠도 그도스 몰람 잡체 도시 되는 용어를 쇼스네 되니게 규메체 봐 시도 대한 샘전 탐제 산예고 봐 마토 산 샘전 탐제 산예고 봐 마토게 봐도 되니게 최배되게 봐 된데설야데 규메체 봐 도시는 차바바나 규메체 바바나 밥전 도시는 그거 용어를 쇼스 몰람 잘해지래 몰람 유츠도 아니 최고 부여.
The Tibetan concludes with the first two lines, may a rain of flowers, gems, and all that is precious continuously fall. So here we can call to mind all that has been offered before, and in addition to what is explicitly mentioned, such as flowers and gems, because we can recall incense and the other substances that were offered before, all that is precious. And this the analogy of continuously fall like rain. So this one thinks of offerings being made continuously, as rain falls continuously in a thunderstorm, so too are offerings continuously being made to all the stupas and holy images, as well as the jewels of holy Dharma. So what's being expressed here is a prayer of aspiration, or the way that this verse is practiced is as a prayer of aspiration. So as here in this translation, and commonly we have here, it starts with may. So there's a particular word in Tibetan, when you have the Tibetan, shog, S-H-O-G. So this, which always in the Tibetan is the very last syllable. And where that is the last syllable, usually in English it's translated as may, it shows an aspiration, a prayer is being expressed. So this is how one makes this offering.
지사다 되네기 최 보디다 안에 산지 그 군자당 안에 지기 최대다 되네기 안에 지기 구당라서 봐다 되네기 가화예베이나로 와다 가화예베나 사자 가와 여베 이내 다 소수기 통화살 여바 소수리 마동사 가와 여베 이내야 대여서 될이야 안에 매드름 붙이 매도다 매도 남 나서다 안에 지기 부에다 두부에다 말매다 내기 안에 지기 가서래 로마다 전야로서 봐도 매바데 내기 안에 이때 규미체바도 전에 그디 나데네 무디지 초피디오 여바직 되네 여바쇼 사지 말음 제거와.
The prayer that's being expressed, this aspirational prayer that's being expressed, is all holy images wherever they are, those both seen by us, known by us, and those still unseen or unknown to us, may all these statues, stupas, and other holy places, may offerings continuously rain down, offerings such as incense, lamps, flowers, and so forth, may these continuously be made.
Jidara jamya la sobe nyawa namla chuzeba deshin dagi deshin she gombo seda jenam chusa.
So this 21st verse then was this expression of heartfelt aspiration. And then coming to the 22nd verse, just as Manjushri and others made offerings to the conquerors, I do likewise to our protectors, the Tathagatas, as well as the Bodhisattvas.
Denigi da adesso jidara jamya la soba jambe ya la sobe ge janju semba niwe si ye la soba da denigi da janju semba pato meba desu gi chou phuya na shin so jamya la sobe yawa namla cheze ba yawa sangye jomden sangye yawa sangye namla ya anu cheba pu go res konju pu chou phuya res urda yawa ne cheze ba sa.
First line refers to just as Manjushri and others. So here we refer to the eight great close bodhisattvas of Manjushri and Vajrapani and Chenrezig and Kishtagarbha, Akshagarbha, Maitreya, Vajrapani, and Sarava Nirvana Vishkambing. So these eight close great bodhisattvas made offerings, remarkable offerings to the various Buddhas.
Denigi jambe yang la sobe janju semba de gi and jik chebo pu gyawanam la chebo pu zeba res chebo pu go res de konzo pu de chebo de da bao do meba shu ji kya chebo shu ji anzo ge sam dan ha le da jik gya gyu bum jur gi nam chebo ze kya chebo shu ji da janju semba pa pa de gi ya and yue je phonsum so ba kon ju gi jik sonam sabe sonam yi tebu dubdu ba za yeji pusun sobali ya yeji gi thone ane ga gini meba za ga phuye ne ga phuye ne bao do meba yo phu go des de ya ja chen mo shu phu go de chele jisa de ne ge sung da bine jambe ya ro shi ne ji korong gi guzul ba wese bao do meba che wese re ya ane ji wese re ya 구레레레 좀 되네 구되네 봐. 자 구레레는 뭐에서 빠도면 버쳐. 되네게 좀 두신 제수 차상의 두신의 상열이야. 최고 빠도면 불고래지도. 나 되네게 구로 그런 류지 구고런 빠도 매버 주변자 되네게 부주비게 되게 소자 전부 유지 불고로 봐. 불고도 되네게 불고래. 제가 되네자 선남 소사 최고 부여기 이게 부당한테 콘솔에 개체화를 지금 매일 와다. 이제 되네자 콘솔 부바나 되네게 개체 보시네. 되네 나지 불고래서 그러거든. 야완놈라 최세 봐서.
되네 콘솔 기아 차차.
다 콘솔이 부이다 되네 불고로 와다 되네게. 게 라소 파스디 디나데 얘기 제가 전신 받아 되네게 참마 망보여로 와다 전서 파파 망보여로 와.
Manjushri and others then. So this refers to the 8 great close bodhisattvas, but we can take it much more broadly in that the style of offering that they engaged in is emulated by other bodhisattvas too. So we could take this really as being a very broad and general way of offering that bodhisattvas engage in. Because bodhisattvas with their remarkable compassion and incredible wisdom, they make offerings in a vast way that for us is almost incomprehensible. So it's quite a general way of offerings that bodhisattvas will engage in, where they visualize offerings being made not just by them, but by countless emanations. And each emanation is emanating light rays, making offerings, and further emanations who themselves are emanating light rays, making offerings, as well as further emanations from their hearts who are making further offerings. So this is the unique style of offering that bodhisattvas such as Manjushri and others engage in. Offerings which are pure because of the quality of the mind making these offerings, as well as because of the power of the mind. Offerings like this are done so regularly that, and with such ease, that they could be said to be continuous. So there is no vaster way of offering than these great bodhisattvas engage in. So this then is the example for us to aspire to emulate.
Ondusine pugore gyachima padome pung pugores deshin dagi deshin she gombo sedan jena gombo sedan jenam chue seoro jisada deshin dagi sidu konjugi dusunam padome dusine puba nashin ngi jang seorda deshin dagi se konjugi deshin sedu janjusemba jamba lasobi dinege sunam jinju sangela ya cheba dine padome ba gyachima pugores di puba nashin 다기 장승이 해양서다 대신 다기 어느 술을 피고 그러지 대신 샤바 공부 세단 제반을 피기 인서래.
Then the third and fourth line, I do likewise. So in other words, I will emulate the example of these great bodhisattvas, or I'll do my best to emulate their great example. And then to whom do we make the offerings? The Tathagatas, here referred to as our protectors, the Tathagatas, as well as to the Bodhisattvas.
아지난 네 다기 대신 대시 공부 세다지 세도 대신 샤바 안에 하다미 안에 탐지기 안에 람됨 코 람된 냠는 뛰는제 야 안에 코르 동안을 줘야지 상예살라 치바 제겐게 공부하시거다 대신샤바도 공부시바 제산 대신샤바디 아주 공부레스 공부세디 아주 하다미 탐지 공부조 탈바다 탐지 캠비 고방 코르 동안을 줘야지 탈바다 탐지 캠비 고방이야 티겐기 공부디 조디레스 제산 대신샤바 공부 안 대신샤바나 대디세 되게 제수 전에 냠술리니 자슈semba 파바 제솔이야 아니 주신의 부규에서 지난 자슈semba 코로즈 푸바 나중에야 되니게 같이 뭐 부규 사실.
The Tathagatas are the protectors of beings, both humans and gods. So how do the Tathagatas or the Buddhas protect humans and gods, or protect beings? They protect beings by teaching them the Dharma, by guiding them in the cultivation of the minds of the Dharma within themselves, because it's through the cultivation of these minds of virtue that one attains protection, one develops protection oneself, protection from suffering. So it's to these protectors, the Tathagatas, that we will make offerings, just like all the great bodhisattvas. And we also make offerings in addition to the Tathagatas, to the bodhisattvas themselves.
디 라가데 제고비 김전 제나 판도 유비 여랍 디 제고고레 시비체 김전 미치기 뭐 시기로 와다 제때 소소랑 삼주리 시셔라나 다 미치기 당보데 네 시기로 와다 배지기 고롱기 김전 야고 장디 네기 판도 여레 디 제고레 디 제고레세디 김전 야고 시기로 와 지시에서지라 다 미치 현다지리하고 김전 야고 시라 시마 시면에 효랑 삼주 가래 랍나 코에 시바나징이라 다가라 인랍나 고망고 시고 세우면와 코이샤바 나는 게 섬도 다하라 인랍나 딘직바 차루로 와다 섬도 직바 차루와 넌다 직바 주부로 와 니나시 다된 아주게 섬도 디네 야침버진 땅 푸마도 왜나 잠야다 잠발로 소바 디네 전주sem바 디지고 두시네 공부 삼다시 쓰는 푸 직야심 뭐 슈푸고 바나시 내라 디나 콘수 푸가 나지 내야 다가라 푸기에서데 대직바로 차루고 와다 넌다 디스고 와다.
This style of offering verse, which we would have come across elsewhere, we can understand the style of making offerings if we take, for example, if one has a meeting where one is discussing that there's a particular problem that we want to overcome. And then one person stands up and proposes a solution, saying, if we were to do this, this is how we'd overcome the problem, and this is the benefits that would be attained. And then that person had their say, and now the next person has an opportunity to say something. But they completely agree with what's just been said. They would just stand up and say, I agree with what she just said. And that's it. She's done and now finished. Very quick, very easy, but as supported, wanting to do and act in the same way. So this is similar to what we are doing here. We who are not yet great bodhisattvas and cannot really yet make offerings in the vast way that they do, but we are expressing our aspiration and our deep wish to become great bodhisattvas and to make offerings like them. So therefore we are saying we offer just like them, which is as close as we can come to emulating them now. So in this way, it's a skillful way to emulate the incredible example of these great bodhisattvas.
소소게 삼라당 소소게다 뒤수에다 소소게 삼라당 투베나 안 소소게 되니까 추와 비디오 갑리아 안 소소게 지기 류바도 메바 주에서 비기 메바 제다 안 랑기 때 코르델이야 냠도 안 숨제 탐제도 신은 냠도 예비 메바제 차상기 되니까 비비 메바제는 부베나 안디 아직 Geshe Thubten Rabten 소수기 류바도 메바 예바다 소수기다 되니까 지기 되니까 부교에서 받아 안델레 랑기 녀허 셈전 탐제다 냐와다 이다다 눈으로 차상 셈전 가르치나디 소수 녀허도 예바제 이 차상하다 셈전 아주 미나바로 되는제 차상 예리베제네 안 차상기도 념도 부교에서 메바제베나 나 되니까 나 선남 Geshe Thubten Rabten 바사디 용고로바 내는 저기 두치는 삼당 투바이나 되는 용고로바 되네게 나 삼당 마투베네 야지 어디지 셰바나신 슈바나신 아니 전시선바데 수기 푸바 간에 쭉 푸바나신 내야 다가라도 신 푸기 선비기 두치는 삼당나 다디고로 숨도하든.
And this explanation ties in with the explanations we've had on the previous verses, in that the purpose of offering in the way that this chapter is presenting is to develop our mind, to expand our mind, to make it broader and more far-sighted, to challenge our current limited way of thinking, and to make our mind much broader and more expansive. So here we can imagine many replicas of ourselves, filling the capacity of our mind, filling the space in our mind, all making offerings. These offerings of the varying types presented here, and making these offerings together with, certainly in the level of imagination, all forms of beings. So whatever realm they're in, they're all joining us in making offerings, in accumulating merit. And we also hold in mind that we are making these offerings with visualizing light rays and duplicates or further replicas and further light rays, making these offerings so as to be at least at the level of aspiration, acting in a way just like our role models, following the example of the great bodhisattvas. So again here with this verse, we are trying to make our mind much more expansive, and thereby creating vast causes of merit.
먼저 연락 등이나네 차사와단 초부에서 저러와 지디다디디 디나네 준준나를 초부에 된 예르제 나 차사와데 제리리도와 아니 다딘 마셔데 차사에 거셔야 돼.
Here, with the 22nd verse, we come to the conclusion of the section on offerings. So if you think of the 7 limb prayers, the offerings are included, but so too is prostration. So now we come to the next short section, which is on prostrations.
지난 데니게 나 저기 삼노다지 최후피디 갑라 최후피에 두시나 삼다다 송고라 두수에 선비게 최후피에게 되는 부여에서 삼다에도 나데네 저기 유 최후피에 유 상예다 장주선바 파바 아니 장주선바 시저 모수부에 유대 상예다 장주선바 파바 최고래 다디 난지 모수 멤베게 슈글라 아니 장주선바 소소기와 연구와 소소기와 솔람바다 졸람바 연구에 디멤비게다 미 년되다 라게 니 지금 남냠네 제된게 대소야 연구와 자산지 모수 부여된 상예다 장주선바다 최고 유대라 안디나시 상이유 손시베 최보디티교 되게래 내 상이유 구유된 아니 지게 아니 그서 군다다 데네 구당라 소바당 데니게 투디 데 최된 아니 지디소 누신의 자산을 부여기 최부의 유디 대소 차기도와 데네게 다 대소야 누신의 삼다이도 아주게 상계다 대수기 구송 토숨 연된 자야다 대소리아 대바지지도 제 지자다 상계 다자주서 파바디서 안줄이야 동아 탐지를 껴바다 껴비 뉴바다 제외 연대다 뉴베인데 요래 삼다이도 델이야 지금 개발의 지수 이상 세야지야 차고래 안에 아주 게진잼베게 대디야 용고래 다 되니게 껴비 뉴바다 껴비 뉴바야 콘소 요래 제외 뉴바 연대 그렇스도 당아주 동아 탈라도 심전 탐지 동아로 껴비 뉴바 콘소 요래 껴그레 셈비게 삼다이도 아니 이시체도 델이야 잠조아도 거와다 도스네 디삼나 다타디게 나서 갈리고도스네 잠조 리기도 너도 삼다 잠조 용고래 안델이야 개발의 지수 이란리고래 안서 게진잼바디야 용고르와 안데니게 최비유 데서도 삼다이도
When we make offerings, so certainly here, but in general too, one's making offerings primarily here to the Buddhas and the Arya Bodhisattvas. In addition, one can also include in one's imagination that one's offering to ordinary bodhisattvas, or those who are yet to realize emptiness directly, as well as to hearers and solitary realizers. Moreover, also making offerings to the qualities in their continuum, particularly those, the Arya Buddhas and Arya Bodhisattvas, the true cessations and true paths on their continuum, as well as to the physical representations of the Dharma, such as the texts, as well as other holy objects, such as statues and tankas and stupas and so forth. So these would be the objects to whom one is making the offerings. But here what's important when calling them to mind is to then also call to mind their qualities, the qualities of body, speech and mind, and then having called to mind their qualities, recognizing that through relying on beings with such good qualities, that we will be able to spiritually develop and become just like them. Through following their example, through following their guidance and teachings, we will become just like them. So here we first call to mind to whom we are making offerings. Then we call to mind their good qualities. Thereafter we recognize the importance that those good qualities have for us, in that through relying on them, following their example, we will become just like them. Thereafter we generate joy and we rejoice in what they have attained, as well as rejoice in our own good fortune through the causes we have accumulated to be here right now, engaging in this practice. And this practice is the practice of refuge, because the objects we've called to mind are the objects of refuge. We have called their good qualities, and now through faith or trust or conviction in their good qualities, we have generated the determination to follow their example, to emulate them, to take their advice in the teachings and cultivate that within us. Thereafter, we've rejoiced in their good qualities and our good fortune.
안디니기 최푸유디가라 군노들의 semjen 탐조 코르 동아래 자제 야 상예살라 꾀기 된다 삼당이도 되네 셈젤이야 셈젤들 동안은 자고 자야지 자고 전에 상예살라 꾀 셈베 삼당이도 동안에 자와 자나 셈베 삼로디 닝시 용거래 아니 셈젠 디기 띵이 대와 주야기 주되게 삼발이도 잠발이기로와 제가 되네자 잠바다 닝지게 냠는데 디 용되겠지 되나 셈젠 탐지게 되네 상요고 본토베 자주 셈 냠는지 된다 두 셈데 잠닝지다 자주 셈기 군원대 여바실 책으로와
Thereafter, we remind ourselves of why we are about to embark on the actual practice of making offerings and why we have just generated refuge. Here then, we come to the purpose of what we are doing, the purpose of the life that we are living, which is to cultivate good qualities, to ease the suffering that beings experience. In other words here, one generates the determination to lead each and every sentient being to attain their own enlightenment and thereby attain a state of lasting happiness, a state completely freed of suffering. So within that expression, where it's expressed, may all beings attain lasting happiness, there one cultivates love, because that is the aspiration of love. And the wish, may all beings attain freedom from suffering. That is the mind of compassion. So here we take love and compassion and develop it into the determination of where it is our responsibility to guide beings. And to do so, we need to become Buddhas so that we can guide them to attain their own state of Buddhahood. So having generated refuge, we now here generate bodhicitta.
나디네게 삼다 당은 피디급려야 아니지 매도당 두배만 마매당 지샤 시제 로마라서 바다 디네 예제 봐도 나바드네한테 대한 림보체 나솔을 주되겐 자침보 시우 부이다고 야보 시우제 안대한 직도신에 가침보 시우제 바지 직야 상jel야 상제다 전심바디길야 데네게 최는지 데네 푸기에 선비 푸기 데네 푸기에 선비게 삼당이도 당한 저기 야 삼로디기 데니기디기 파 최고 푸여도 뢰파 동고로 와다 뢰파 동고로 와 동고로 와다 제가 동회 선바 在讲过就把动啊是其实的최고 푸고를 최고 푸기 냠는 제도 르라 진배 냠는 리고로 와 진배 냠는 두고로 당서 돼
Having gone for refuge and generated bodhicitta, now we embark on the activities of making offerings. So one here engages in the offerings as described, offering a variety of things: flowers, incense, lamps, a crystal palace, a bathing chamber, parasols, music, and so forth. And one imagines giving in the way presented here, with the visualizations of vast beings giving to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, the three jewels. And this is the training of the mind of generosity, the wish to give.
데니게 유제디기 피비갑리네 유제디기 생이전에 주 초바다 생이전에 구마고하다 생이전에 데니게 멤버체 언제기네 샬레 미뉴바다 샬레네나 마디바디니 미뉴베 토네 소수교 뢰랑 소수교 삼문나 도시 뢰랑 진데네 여직진 피바인자 되고 샬레야 네나 마디바다 데니 샹기 지기 샹기 젤라 구마고하다 생이절로 초바로서 바데니게 데솔이야 잼 안마지 잼베 토네 안 소수기 진에 삼는 타는 주에네 여바진 푸여바자 아니 지금 뇌래야 아니 주림 냠래내도 용거로 봐.
Thereafter, you recall the importance of when one makes offerings. So even if this entire process is just being done mentally, one still can engage in this next step, that we remind oneself of whenever one makes offerings, one should do so in a way that brings no harm. That no offering, whether it's an offering of help or service or a material offering, should be done in any way that is dishonest or takes advantage of others and so forth. So here, following following but still linked to the practice of generosity is the training in ethics.
데니게 피비갑리야 아직에 소수게 강한 마찬가지 아니지 되게 단데네 뒤에 마다마다 되게 아직 강한 유변에 강한 마찬가지 되게 강한 수혜시 강한 마찬가지 되네 부여도 야고 약보래 섬지 부여도 네 수배냐는 줘야다 되게 지 부디급로 소수래 되게 부여 빼 되게 냠는지 빼 약보래서는 갈라나지네 도시 부여도 근데 존중이 냠는 거래 로창고르바 되게 섬다 직찬다 남면 베능아즈 레가다 되게 진행에도다 파 되게 셈 치료 남면되게 파가지 즉 최비 유제들 되게 유제를 제주 섬다 유제되게 부여기 다 부유 안지게 권조 대술이야 제주도 섬다 산두신의 섬다지 부유 근데 삼대냠네 염도 용거로 로창고래 섬대 제주도 로디아 장고래 지선다 지게 디릭 푸예게 릭 좀보체 디다디로 데네 요스베 파치 지 릭타 마라 데네지 야와 남미 체제 부여도 갈라 셰럽기 냠네 넘버 랭이 넘버 체게 야보디게 지 랴디 두신 랭이 넘버 체 부예게 두 삼다에도 데네 셰럽기 냠네 자야데 아주 그로 자야데 지사 데네 삼미도 진비 로자야 수림이 로자야 쇠비 로자 전주기 로자야 samdenda sherab ki nyamle ki chasan lo jaya di du sine choba dine samda jang du sine puyon samda pudi kapla ane parsin druga ki nyamle ya lo jaya di ke lo jangi yo bada ane dele kuno da sin jamni je yu chang de gen ane dele ya ane gyabyu di ke chang de gen dele ya gyamdro ya yu de gen jindi chang du sine samda de chasan dine du 지금 다다 장갈 마선의 개발선 빠르면 휴지 차기도 하더네. 베는 점돌리고로와 아니 지금 잠니지게 군원리고로와 잔심 군원리고로와 되네 진백에 수제나 쇠바다 전주에다 삼다 셔라게도 로자한테 차살리야도 안데네 개와디 사시도다 되네 개와 되네 삼다는 망부지 리어도다 되네 개와 사바시고다 삼로디게 삼로디게 두 장도 주고로와 두 신의 장기쟁이 진진데 그 뉴벌마 셔셔 줘야 이게 차고로와다 나이지 지자 림보치 리다 배 야고디 야고레디 야고레스 바딜 야고디 예와 체제 바 부고로와 지자 셰럽세디 야고도 예와 체데 셰르 랭예 넘버 셰바 셰르 인지미 동의도 비 셰르 인고야 말아 셰럽세디 랭예 넘버 셰베 세디 야고디 디 야고디 차산 담지 부고로와 데리 푸예기 디 야고디디 세다 안지게야 푸세디야 아니 컨트롤이야 두신 부고에서 비sam다도 랭예 넘버 셰베 셰럽대 용고를 되나
Whilst making these offerings, which is very, when we read these verses, it's very clearly the practice of generosity, but it can also and should also be done with ethics, as just mentioned, and so too it's suitable for the practice of patience, in that one can either explicitly generate the determination to be skillful in dealing with any hardships that one may encounter, or if one is encountering any hardships whilst engaging in the practice, then to apply patience, such as if a mind of anxiousness arises, or because of impatience due to a lack of time or due to many activities one needs to engage in. Then one recognizes the arisal of that mind and is patient with it, letting it go, and rather continuing with the offering. And fourthly, one generates delight with the offering that one is making. In this way, joyous perseverance is included, and concentration will be to trying to engage in a way that's as free of distraction as possible, as single-pointed as possible. And Wisdom doesn't have to be done with an understanding. Doesn't only refer to the wisdom realizing emptiness. Wisdom is much broader than that, because it can be translated as a knowledge or intelligence. So here, an easy way to practice wisdom is just the very dividing that you will be doing, dividing between an offering substance of mediocre quality, but rather making an offering of greater quality. So this act of dividing between a poor quality offering and a greater quality of offering, this is also the usage of intelligence or wisdom. So this then is a supremely skillful method to engage in the 6 perfections, these 6 practices of generosity through to wisdom, which are conjoined with bodhicitta on the basis of refuge. And doing so, one accumulates extensive virtue, and bearing in mind what virtue means, virtuous ways of thinking. And the accumulation is that there is virtuous mind upon virtuous mind upon virtuous mind, especially when you're dividing it into these various components of refuge, of faith, of bodhicitta, including love and compassion, and then the 6 perfections. So we see there that there's accumulation, and these are all virtuous ways of thinking. And by repeatedly engaging in skillful offering practice as just described, one is accumulating ever more virtue, and the stronger the virtue becomes, that means the stronger these virtuous minds are. The stronger this accumulation of virtue comes about through engaging in this practice repeatedly over a sustained period.
Nanchugi none, Tone, Digi to do a say, Tablam de Zode, Semlia, or Chicombrice, the Semdi, on Combrice, the Chick, Yane, and Comgo, the Comba Combrice Palatine, Digi to the Dunga say, Tablam Zode, the Tingu Benza, Tanga Semlia, Lucine, to some Dankuri, Tambena, Jiggy, got new bad mass on church to Buria said. Denigi, you get that Benanga yet that he never choke here, sometimes choke here, didn't pugu, then Arazula, Arazula, Chiki, Sena said your brother, Sena is doing the Meva so, rather, Meva so the Sena said, Chiki, don't mafia body, Benishan, Tematu, Chopu, Matu, Ching Sosuke, Sena said your brother. The Sena the back or Meva so, the Meva so, di docho de dong sembe samlo ji ba jiang guo le ni ni docho cha de lo da dong me sembe samlo de na dong gi sembe samlo ni di docho cha de dong gi sembe pu yi sembe sam da de ko geli jine go sena de ko me ba cha ru ge so ni ba de ma so ne yin ni ye me ba de cha ge lo wa de ne za de du jine chou pu ye dong ye sem ba de du si chou pu de jiang guo le sa de ja de lo cha ya de si gu ba de de Yajik Doya Jang Labdu, Yajik Chasan, Jesha, said, Dian no to Chagarwa, Michasan or Rangarchin, she said, Dimarwa. She said, Sosulia, Chike Dong said, Susu, don't we send by Giant Yellow, don't we send by the Giant. Dama, don't to the mother said, Sosulia, said the puppy, some dangling don't go. But the Yajik, Sosu, Lucia, and Sosulia, Twinjin, Mena. Don't we send by the Gawa to Yagi, Shanla Panto Jeg, nobody Yungmarwa, Mevaza, Sosuli, Shanle Panto Jebala, Ralia, Ganga, Matebaji, Sosugi, Yahuchi Gurua, the Yobala, this one Gupchi, Shanlia, that Sosugi, Guedi, Yadia, Shanle Pempichi, Shanlia, Digi to in some time, and this and not Chago Made, Sosugu, Winners, the Tumba Chagorwa. That the Negi member and Chichida, Sosugu, Nuba, Noya, Gogovio, that did Nuba, and chicken, Sosana, some time, and this and I said, just Migivich Chagorwa. Says that the Negi Sena, Choyala, don't we send by the two Chango Baza. Don't we send by the Chang do, just a dinner and the Senate Mavasuko, just a new mobile, just a descendants. Jenna Jeza de Sujim Sway said, Shall never cheat me, somebody. Shall never check somebody, Mavasuola, he never jig me, some of the Kazi shook chair, and shall never check Yun to war water. Just a D, some of the Jango had to do shadow. Duchin, some of the Gom said, Yana, some title, to quote Gumse some down. Gumse samda di pando yobada di majena ani gyun yubi da jena rang la pando shen la pando ani mong be jebu an di yung yoba lu shine ani samda da an jege jeba che di na shi da di su ya 즉 디유투야 저 규단 긴 셴 되실에 되는 두고 마도 강来마되바 강来마되바 랑공원에 줍되게 매바래 선비게 두신에 젠지게 남자 삼당 제바제 두신에 삼당이 된진에 동에 셈바자 다다 춤소야다 맞아 로파 두수 야네 야도 삼다이들도 와 진짜 야네 야도 삼다도 아니 양세 양세 코르용아지나 디니기 양세 양세 코르용 기디나 디네 코르용아 삼다 양세 양세 코르din yani nimjilia and gedina 동반이다 냠벌 마샤바이나 샤바네 네수카라 냠자 마샤바네 기디나 디니게 또 샹로 로치게 지 판버두면서 삼로데 코딩에 질리게 서와도 요 디네 용기 서와다 디니게 냠는 버코라 냠는 나이도 온 두시네 요 투바딩 아주 장국을 해야 돼. 다 삼로 장사 두시네 순고로 와다.
Two words are often used to describe what we do. One is practice, one is train. So train is clear. What is one training? One is training one's mind. This too is the meaning of practice. Practice, or literally to gain experience of. This refers to training one's mind. This is the process of what we are trying to do, which is it's through training our mind or practicing that we gain habituation. So we're trying to develop in our Dharma practice habituation to wholesome, virtuous ways of thinking and abandon our habituation to unwholesome, non-virtuous ways of thinking. And this is the very method by which happiness is attained and suffering is abandoned. To the extent that we develop our habituation to wholesome ways of thinking, those wholesome ways of thinking become ever stronger within us. They arise more easily, they abide for longer. And in this way, our mind being virtuous, we are experiencing happiness. Our mind being freed of the afflictions, our mind is not suffering. So the affliction of miserliness, the self-centered attitude of miserliness, this we need to abandon through cultivating the directly opposing mind, the directly contrary mind of generosity. So this is in general how one trains. To abandon a particular affliction, one needs to cultivate the opposing virtuous mind. And to the extent that virtuous mind becomes strong and dominant within us, that contrary affliction will struggle to arise. And if it does, it will have very little strength and not be able to abide. So the fault of this self-centered attitude of miserliness is that this is what causes us to hold back from reaching out and helping others. Miserliness causes us to hold back our good qualities and rather keep them tight, thinking they'll benefit ourselves, rather than using them to freely benefit others. So, as we've seen with these preceding verses, that training in generosity is a mental training, just like every other training in the Dharma. It is a mental training. To be a generous person doesn't mean that one is handing things out to others. It means one has developed a deep and sincere attitude to give to others. When a generous person is materially or physically practicing generosity, they will be materially or physically giving to others, maybe through speech, maybe through a material gift, or through action. But they will be doing so with a mind that is free of miserliness. Whereas a deeply miserly person may not give, or they may feel pressure to do so, and give physically whilst holding back. Here what we're trying to develop is an attitude where we want to give, and where we have skills or a material abundance, we do give, and we give with an attitude that is sincerely focused on alleviating the suffering of others, with no holding back. And that attitude is what is cultivated in the practice of generosity. Hence, it is a mental training, which will, at times, perhaps often, be expressed physically, but the training is done mentally. So therefore, someone who has trained well in generosity will not be experienced by others as someone who gives everything away and holds onto nothing for themselves. But the person who has trained in generosity will experience themselves as giving freely and being focused on the welfare of others. Similarly, so in the same way that the mind of generosity is contrary to the mind of miserliness, and to the extent we develop a generous outlook, we eradicate the miserly attitude, so too, to the extent that we develop the ethical outlook, which is a determination of I will not bring harm, to that extent, the wish to harm or any harmful expression will greatly weaken. So as we train our mind in valuing others, in caring for others, in wanting the best for all, the wish for harm to come to others will subside. And when an opportunity comes when one could respond in a way that would bring harm, there'll be restraint. We will restrain ourselves from acting in such a way. So this is the cultivation of the ethical outlook that opposes the contrary, harmful way of engaging with others. And this then is the general way of training our mind to attain happiness, to attain freedom from pain, freedom from suffering. To the extent that we train our mind in this way repeatedly over a sustained period, habituation comes. Through training or practicing repeatedly over a sustained period, seeing ever more clearly, ever more vividly, the benefits of wholesome, virtuous ways of thinking and the faults of harmful ways of thinking. And thinking ever more of how, in varying challenging circumstances, what is the skillful approach? And what approaches will lead to harm in the long run? In this way, we develop our habituation to virtue. And how we will experience this is we'll see our mind being ever less disturbed by afflictions, no matter what we encounter. And we'll see our response to a wide variety of circumstances. Our response will be wholesome, with virtuous minds naturally arising within us, spontaneously arising within us. These are uncontrived minds of virtue. And that's what we are striving to do, where these virtuous minds become so ingrained within us, they become our personality. We become deeply ethical, deeply generous, deeply patient people. This is what we strive to do through training in this way.
All right,
So thank you. We can conclude there for this week, but if you have some questions, then please do feel free to ask. And thank you very much.